All right, guys, welcome back to yet another episode of Let's Assess. We're here in the garage, and last week we kind of talked about, how to go from rookie to pro. This week we're going to talk about something that kind of frustrates both of us, and it's common mistakes that we see all the time in riders. And we're going to jump right into it, so stay tuned.
Look, I don't want to talk. How you try and press the kid and really you was soft.
All right, guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the best snowmobile podcast in the entire planet Earth and in the universe, Let's Assess Podcast. So today we're here in the garage. AJ's with me, and we're going to jump into the most common mistakes that we see. And when we see these mistakes, we know that the rider doesn't really know what they're doing, or they're probably miserable doing it. So we're going to jump in. We're going to take you guys a level up by the end of this podcast. So stick around and let's jump right into it. So AJ,
guys,
let's ride.
If you like what you're seeing from us, if you're liking the content, loving it, subscribe, please. Even if you're not watching on YouTube, go to YouTube and subscribe. It helps us a ton. That's what we need is subscribers. If you're on other platforms listening, if you can and share that stuff, that'll be fantastic too. But please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's where we're trying to get this to go.
Yes.
So,
all right. So the first thing we kind of want to start, most of these tips, these mistakes, if you will, are riding related, but we wanted to start at the base level here. We don't need to worry about riding mistakes if we are caught up on being miserable with gear. So let's just jump into a few gear tips really, really quick.
Yeah. So first thing is make sure your gear is ready for the day. If you rode yesterday and your stuff's wet, you're going to be miserable. Make sure your goggles are dry so they're not going to be fogged up as you pull away or ice over right away. Make sure that your gear is all dry inside and out so you don't just start off as an icicle or even cold to begin with. And then in that same sense, if you're just buying gear, think about what's going to have you be the most comfortable when you're out there, not so much stuck on like, oh, I really want a red coat, but they don't have the red coat and the better coat. Think of what you would, what's going to actually help you when you are in the situation of needing that clothing. So,
yeah. And I think something that you guys need to think about is get the best gear that you can afford. It doesn't need to be the most top of the line gear, but get something that's going to keep you warm, dry, and safe. And while I'm on the safe topic, guys, quit modding out your sleds if you don't have the budget to get a beacon, probe, avalanche vest, and a radio. Those are like 4 essentials that you need to have. That is one of the most frowned upon things is you have a $30,000 sled build and 0 safety gear. And if you don't care about your own safety, care about the other guys in your group, you need to have these safety things to be able to rescue somebody. For you to be safe, be alive, you need helmet, all the protective stuff. So that's kind of all I need to say. Stay safe, dry, and warm.
Yep, that's the key things with gear for sure. And if you can afford to put money into your sled, that's when we'd recommend that if you have the beacon, the probe, the shovel, and the radio, that's when you need to get an airbag, a safer helmet, expand on that safety stuff. That's where you need to invest some money until you are set up very good on that side. That is what's going to save your life or help save one of your friends' lives or someone else you don't know even.
Yep. So once we got the gear thing out of the way, that's a huge deal. Let's talk about actually riding. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they're so tense on their snowmobile. They're nervous. They're not confident. They don't really know what they're doing. So they're stiff. They're not loose. And obviously if you're tense, you're not loose. But what I'm trying to say here is if you are a tense rider, there's no way that you can make decisions and flow with the snowmobile. You have to be loose, relax. Worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get thrown off into the snow or you're going to get stuck. So what I'm trying to say is when you're kind of thinking about making mistakes, loosen up. If you loosen up, all of these mistakes will be cut in half. That's my true opinion.
Yeah, be one with the snowmobile. Like you got to let it flow under you. You got to be loose with it. If you're riding like a 2x4 on it, it's not going to go well. And in that sense of being like, if you are tense, it's going to take your muscles a lot longer to make jerk reactions, and they're going to be jerk reactions versus if you're just flowing with it, whatever, it's, under you, not you trying to tame it. If it's just under you flowing, that's when you're going to see a lot more success. And in that same sense, when you're tense, your eyes, like if you just clench everything, your eyes will focus on something. Same thing when you're riding. If you're tense, you're going to be staring at the obstacles. And everybody knows you don't stare at the obstacles when you're riding a snowmobile. You want to observe everything in your whole range of your eyes. So in that same sense of being loose on the snowmobile, you need to be able to focus on all the terrain, not just, oh, tree, don't hit the tree, oh, there's a hole, don't go in that, etc.
Yeah. So something that I'd say right before we go into our next thing that AJ kind of touched on, the reason I can tell, or how I can tell basically how people are, or when people are tense, is beginner riders tend to be really, really squatted back down on the snowmobile with straight arms. That's like the number one common mistake that I see with snowmobilers.
Yep, butt out.
Yeah, butt out, and they're kind of like hunched over and their arms are completely straight. Get your feet in the right spot, loosen up, be over the hood of the snowmobile or over the front of the snowmobile, and be in that aggressive position. That's my thing. So AJ just talked about our second thing, eyes, guys, eyes. So many people are nervous, they're clenched, and they're just staring at the, they don't want to hit the tree, so they stare at the tree. That is the worst thing that you can do. Look where you want that snowmobile to go. If you're advanced, think about a reentry. If you're pulling a reentry and your head is the wrong way, that reentry is not going to come around. Look where you want to go, and in return, the snowmobile is going to go that way.
Yep. And that's another thing that comes in that. Like if you have the proper stance and you've, like even a football player, basketball player, you want to be, knees over toes, shoulders over knees, so on and so forth. Same thing on a snowmobile. And what that does is that brings your neck into a position where you can see good. So if you bring good form onto the snowmobile, you're going to bring good form for your eyes to have good vision to see as well. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I've seen even teaching new people coming into the sport, or just people on a tour trip, whatever. If you take their vision away from them in a snowstorm or anything like that, that is when their skills just nosedive or they never get the skills. If I have a nice bluebird day to teach skills, I guarantee you'll have a lot better luck. So in that, knowing that, improve your vision. If your goggles are fogged, if you have a problem fogging goggles, find a solution for that to where you can look ahead. And that's when you need to use momentum to get up hills. And then that's how you'll be able to read that terrain. If you have good vision, you can read the terrain. If you can read the terrain, you can ride the terrain. But if you can't read the terrain, that's something you need to practice and focus on learning, is how to read the terrain to where, oh, I want to get some speed up to hit this hill to then do a reentry on the hill. Okay, there's a lot of steps that lead up to the reentry that you have to execute before you can do the reentry. But the only way you can do that is if you look ahead to where you're going.
Looking ahead is where your momentum is going to come from. If you're looking 2 feet in front of you, it's going to be really hard to carry speed. So get those eyes up, carry speed, and then everything will fall into place. If you're looking at the hood of your snowmobile or right in front of your snowmobile, it's never going to work. You're going to be reacting instead of being proactive and making that sled do what you want it to do.
Have multiple plans, like in that situation, if you're looking ahead, you can make that plan of like, this is where I want to go, but if I don't make it there, I can do this or this, right? Have multiple plans in that same situation. But like Brent's saying, if things start coming at you fast, all of a sudden you don't have a plan B. And that's when
and you don't have time to react to make a plan B because that tree is already in your bumper.
You're already using that new backwoods.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. One of the biggest mistakes that I see when I take guys out that aren't really advanced in the sport is when it comes to side hilling, when it comes to just making the sled go where you want it to go, everyone tries to use more throttle. And that is the worst thing you can do, because if you're using more throttle, you're not in control. And that's when really bad things happen. That's when you start hitting trees, you get whiskey throttle, you get mouse trapped, all kinds of things. So realize that throttle is used in certain manners, but not to correct you not being able to control the snowmobile.
Yeah, you can really get yourself out of a lot of situations using throttle. And sometimes, most of the time you'll say, hey, if you do that a little faster, it'll be better for you. But for the most part, what you see is people get to that medium point of confidence and they're like, ooh, I can go faster and that's easier for me. But you start skipping the technique. You have to hone your technique in order to be able to ride with the big dogs.
But see, like going off that, what I see a lot of the time is, and Chris Brandt talks about this in his videos on like his clinics, and it's so true. It's like, okay, I want you to hold this side hill. I want you to stop.
Yep.
Then I want you to go again. And I can always tell a rider that's completely out of control when they start losing the side hill and they go faster, and their feet are in the wrong spot. They're not on edge. They're losing the edge. So then they just try to have throttle make up for it. And it normally turns into a little bit of a shit show.
Well, two things that happen in that. Say you're going across the side hill and you start speeding up. Well, the reason you're speeding up is because you want it to come more on its side. But all you're doing is when you speed up is the sled naturally wants to be flat. That's how they're designed. But it does help keep them on their side with speed, because what happens is you speed up and you lengthen your arms out and then you lengthen your butt out. And the next thing you know, you're hanging 5 feet off the snowmobile and the snowmobile's flattening out, but you feel like you're in control because you're way out there and you have the weight in the right spot, but you don't have the sled in control to where you could like hug it and stop it, or if something happens, you couldn't stop.
Yeah, you got to realize if like I'm 200 pounds, the snowmobile's 500 pounds with gas and oil in it or whatever.
Yeah.
You were with 500 pounds and then gravity, you were not going to out muscle a snowmobile. So you have to have technique to get it to do what you want it to do.
And if you use technique, you keep your body weight in sync with the center of the snowmobile, and that's when you have control. When you start moving that body weight further away from the center of the snowmobile, that's where you lose your control, and that's when shit show happens.
Yeah, we love a shit show, but not in this case. So anyway, okay, the next thing I talked about this in the last podcast, but it is a huge deal and people don't understand it. When you are riding on a trail versus riding in the deep snow, what you are doing with your handlebars and your skis are polar opposite. Let me explain. If you want to go left on a trail, you are going to turn your skis to the left and you can lean or whatever you want to do. Then the snowmobile will go left. In deep snow, it is the opposite. People do not understand this. So they're trying to turn the skis left and they're trying to side hill left, and that snowmobile will not come on edge. What you have to understand is in the deep snow, you need to what we call countersteer, which is turning the skis to the right, which in return gets you on your left edge and enables you to turn to the left. So if you're trying to go left, turn right in the deep snow, your skis right and side hill left. If you are trying to go right in the deep snow, turn left and side hill right. That is how it works. And people, for whatever reason, cannot understand that.
They don't understand it. And I'm going to give you some homework. Go out to your garage, go out to your trailer, whatever, put your snowmobile on flat ground. Turn your snowmobiles the wrong way. Grab your mountain bar. If you don't have a mountain bar, you can hang on to the handlebars because they'll be close to you, and pull it to that side. Left or right, doesn't matter. Turn the other way, pull it over. See how easy it comes to you to get it on edge.
You're talking about with the handlebars.
Handlebars turned wrong, using wrong way steer. Yeah,
okay. Counter
steer.
Yeah.
So do that. And see, what you're going to see is when you do that, you can have full control of your handlebars. So I'm going to use the example. I'm going to put the sled down flat ground. I'm going to turn the handlebars to the left. The throttle is then in a place I have control, right? So it's coming closer to me. I have control of the throttle. I have control of the brake. I have full control of the controls. I can reach them both. I pull the sled on its side. Same thing. Other way, I still have the hand on the throttle, finger on the brake. The brake's going to be closer to you, but you still have full control of both. You can pull it that way. Now, if you don't understand countersteer by, oh, that was really easy, it pulls right over, try doing it the other way. Turn your handlebars to the right and then try leaning to the right. You can't. The ski tip is so far out there that you lose the leverage, because when you're pulling it on the back end of the ski, all the leverage is in your favor. You put that to the tip of the ski, and then all of a sudden you don't have leverage in your favor. So, and then also with that leverage being pushed out there, you lose your controls as well. You now have your throttle way out there and you can't reach it. And then you have the throttle way out, or your brake way out there and you can't reach it either. So it's the way they are set up. It is a counter steer sled, but put it on flat ground and try doing it both ways and see which way's easier. And I guarantee you counter steer, the sled will pull right to you where you want it at a dead stop.
The other thing is too with that, I like that saying the point is out further. That's true. The other thing that's true is you got to realize if you're going forward, your track is pushing you forward and you turn your skis to the right, it's still pushing you forward. It's going to create drag on that left ski.
Yep.
So that in turn is going to make you go up on edge.
Yep.
Go
You're
into a
digging
meadow.
it in.
Yeah, go into a meadow, drive straight, and then mess with your handlebars. And I promise you, if you turn them to the left, you're going to go right. And if you turn them to the left, or if you turn to the right, you're going to go left.
Even if you turn left, you're going to go to the right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
if
that's
you
how it
just
works.
sit neutral, if you sit down and go neutral in a meadow and you do that, you're going to feel exactly what it wants to do. And that's going to get your little side to side motion going. If you
But
do
then
that.
you can use technique once you know how to counter steer instead of using throttle and being out of control and trying to use your muscle, because you're never going to out muscle a snowmobile.
Yep.
So
I think that's the biggest thing is that one right there is the biggest frustration for everybody that comes out mountain riding is understanding counter steer. If you don't understand it, find a way to understand what counter steer is and how it works to where when you can try it, it'll make sense.
yeah, I've rode with guys that have rode for like 5-10 years and they still don't understand it. And they're pouring sweat 2 minutes into the ride. It's like, bro, counter steer, blip the throttle and get it up on edge instead of trying to muscle it.
Absolutely.
Okay, last thing, this kind of ties a lot of it together. You have to have the confidence. One of the mistakes, let's go back to the mistakes. People let the snowmobile ride them instead of them riding the snowmobile. You have to be confident enough and skilled enough and have enough technique that will come through the years to be able to make that snowmobile do what you want it to do. And what I mean by that is not your butt out and, you know, you're going across the side hill and your butt's out and it's dragging you down the hill and you can't do anything about it. But make that snowmobile do what you want it to do. I always tell friends, like, be aggressive. Like, make that snowmobile do what you want to do. If it's not doing what you want to do, counter steer, blip the throttle and yank it onto its side and make it do what you want it to do. If you let it ride you, you're going to end up in a tree well or at the bottom of the hill flipped over every single time.
Yep. And he's not trying to say like, oh, go out in the meadow and do 50 mile an hour and do this, or be confident, go fast. Like, he's saying be confident in the way of like, act like you own that snowmobile. You're going to make it do what you want it to do, not it do what you know, whatever it tries to do. And then you follow behind. Make that snowmobile do what you want it to do. And you're going to be a lot happier.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, you got to think going across the side hill. What does a snowmobile want to do? It's going against gravity. So it wants to just go flat onto two skis and go down the hill. That's what gravity's trying to make it to do. So it's your job to make it do what you want it to do, to keep that edge, to turn where you want to. And that's what you'll get with years of practice and understanding what all of these techniques are.
Yeah. So hopefully this helps you guys. That was a quick, fast breakdown. And we wanted to just jump in with a bunch of information and hit you with a lot of information. And hopefully it helps.
Yeah. Some things to think about before the winter. So
yeah,
thank you guys for watching. If you subscribe, it means the entire world to us.
Yes.
Comment, share it with one person. It helps the channel go further. Thank you. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.